Welcome to the Switch Click Podcast, episode 85, recorded on May 24th, 2022. Tonight we'll be diving back into the brainstorming lab and creating the perfect situation for the Fantastic Four to join the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This episode will contain spoilers from Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but if you haven't seen the movie yet, it's on you.
You've probably been spoiled already, to be completely honest. It's kind of everywhere.
My name is Dakota, and today I'm joined by Tyler.
Hello.
And Nathan.
Hello.
So, after seeing John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic in the Multiverse of Madness, the conversation has kind of arisen of who will be the other three members of the Fantastic Four. After the first three movies aren't that great, I guess maybe one of them is, but that's okay. We really need to get these actors right before they may or may not make 6-year plus contracts with Marvel. And we'd also like to brainstorm a little bit on how Marvel can introduce these characters into the MCU now that cough cough, the other one is dead.
I think an easy solid way to get everything started is just to talk about Mr. Krasinski himself. So
yeah, let's get the elephant out of the room.
Yeah. You guys like John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic? Or I guess, do any of you really know anything about the Fantastic Four? Because I really don't.
Aside from watching the three movies, not much.
Half my information is from people on Twitter who really care about the Fantastic Four talk about why they like it. So I've not read any Fantastic Four comics.
I haven't read either. I think I might have seen the Fantastic or Fanforstic, the really bad one. That's the only one I've seen. It was so mad, I don't remember anything from it, but that's okay. But John Krasinski, I've seen a little bit of The Office. I don't, maybe the first season. He's really good in that just because it's comedic timing and whatnot. He's really good at that. But for the time that we were with him for Multiverse of Madness, I don't think he had enough for any impact or any gauge to see if he was good for the character. He is very good at acting from The Quiet Place, so I don't doubt him on that.
Mm-hmm. I personally feel, although this is probably me just regurgitating something I saw on YouTube or Twitter or something, but I've heard that Mr. Fantastic in the comics, especially near the beginning, is very pessimistic, and he's like the smartest person in the room, and he knows it. So he's kind of cocky and everything like that. He kind of sucks, really.
Yeah.
And later in his career, after marrying Invisible Woman and having a kid and stuff, then he starts to loosen up and kind of be a little more like what we saw in Multiverse of Madness, which he seemed more caring, especially considering his first instinct is to kind of calm her down instead of, I don't know, capture her or something.
Yeah.
And while I feel like he did a good job in that, I really have no gauge to what he'd be like in the other kind of role, especially considering from what I've seen in his other movies and stuff, John Krasinski kind of plays like the perfect boy kind of character, where he does a great job, and the perfect boy is a little what's the word? It kind of diminishes what he does, but in all his movies, he doesn't really he doesn't not make mistakes. It's more of he's always in the right. He's the good guy, which is perfectly fine, and he does a good job, but I feel like that might not work as well for Mr. Fantastic, because I feel a necessary part of his character is to be wrong.
Yeah, and as well in the comics, I know that he's not great to Sue Storm, because Sue Storm multiple times goes to Namor to just have a relationship with Namor. So I doubt Disney would ever add that, but it would be an interesting way of showing the growth of a character, or the degrowth.
Wow. To be fair, I'm pretty sure Namor has just been hunting after her since they were created. So
yeah, and I can't really see John Krasinski also going into the almost super focused hyper mode to figure something out. I can't really see him doing that.
maybe he can. Maybe he just hasn't been in a spot to do that. So maybe he'd surprise me, and I hope he does, because it really does kind of feel like it's almost definitely that he's going to be the Mr. Fantastic.
Mhm.
But if he doesn't, there's plenty of fan casts of other people that other people want him. What is my sentence? There's plenty of fan casts that other people made that don't have him as Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And
Quite interesting, to be honest.
as we kind of suck at casting and don't know many actors, we're just going to judge them and not come up with our own ideas.
I will mention before we get to the other characters that I don't know if this was confirmed or not, but I watched a YouTube video by Mr. Sunday Movies where they talked about almost this exact topic, and on the cameos of the MCU, the Multiverse of Madness, and they specified that from their source, they mentioned that what is the actor currently for not Mission Impossible, 007?
James Bond, that's Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig. So they mentioned that Daniel Craig was supposed to be Mr. Fantastic for that cameo.
Really?
But I think that the Daniel Craig part was an assumption, but the original actor was supposed to be Mr. Fantastic, but he decided not to due to COVID, because that was when COVID was peaking. So people
that's
are
true,
assuming
yeah.
Daniel Craig, because it wasn't booked for anything during that time.
Mhm.
And then they
Yeah.
just flew out John Krasinski, I bet, because it was close. He might have been in whatever, maybe in LA or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
At the time. So, and that might have just like been a convenience. It would be weird to have Daniel Craig personally, but
Yeah,
I have
agree
also
with that.
heard, I'm not sure how correct this is, that it was kind of misinformation. Daniel Craig was supposed to be a character named Balder the Brave, who was also in
too.
the Illuminati,
Yeah.
and they just replaced him with Mr. Fantastic afterwards. So, but I guess Daniel Craig, well, I think a little old, could be Mr. Fantastic, I guess. I've only really seen him in James Bond and Knives Out.
Yeah.
So
I don't think
I
he
don't
has
know.
like almost the look. He has a very circle face shape.
Yeah, it
That's
doesn't
true.
seem to match like Mr. Fantastic's kind of look. Well, I would say like a square face look, or
Mm-hmm.
Like a tall-ish face, yeah.
yeah.
Beard sometimes, also sometimes not.
Yeah. And also the beard on him, I don't think I've ever seen a beard on him in the movies or anything, so
Yeah.
So maybe let's
That's
just get
fair.
on to the next ones.
Actually, think before we move on, I just want to bring up one other fan cast that I've seen decently popular, which is William Jackson Harper, who plays Chidi in The Good Place, as another potential Mr. Fantastic. And while I do feel like Chidi is pretty much just Mr. Fantastic in The Good Place, and it would kind of make a little bit of sense considering Kang is black, although he's a descendant, so it doesn't really matter. Far enough in the future, your skin color does not matter at all,
Yeah.
and your descendants. But I don't know. If Marvel decide that they don't want to go with an entirely white Fantastic Four, I think he would be a choice I'd prefer over John Krasinski, but I don't know.
We have some photos here for reference, and one of from Twitter, I guess, that you collected from other fan castings.
Google Images, but
this last one has somebody who definitely fits the look and would be actually very interesting. Rahul Kohli.
Let's look up Rahul Kohli. If I had to get,
He honestly fits the look, and if they want some, if they don't want to go with the all-white cast, then that would be actually very interesting.
I'm not sure if. Okay, apparently he was in Supergirl for a little bit. I have not seen Supergirl, so I have seen it, but I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't really know. The Haunting of Bly Manor, haven't seen that. Happy Anniversary, haven't seen that, and I Zombie, haven't seen that. So that's what he's known for on IMDb. Oh, he was in Harley Quinn. He was Scarecrow. He was Scarecrow on the Harley Quinn show. Although that doesn't really show his visual looks, but He was in Red versus Blue. Okay. He definitely does have the look, though. I've seen him on Twitter, actually pretty recently, just talking about people fan casting, and he's like, and I'm pretty sure he'd be down. Although his tweets aren't very like, like watered down actor tweets.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
His tweets aren't that. His tweets feel a lot more opinionated.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, what's the actor? Shimu Liu. He's very
yeah, he is
no
more
filter.
personable. Yeah, but he also does have all those sponsored tweets about Google Pixel. So.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
I
like
saw
those ads.
those freaking advertisements.
Yeah. Maybe he'll start. He'll be like a, I don't know, Samsung spokesperson after this, if he got cast. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good everything for Mr. Fantastic.
So maybe let's move on to, I would say, yeah, let's just move on to Sue Storm. All I
Right.
know from her character is she goes invisible. I don't know anything about the plot of her character, so I don't know what to gauge for an actor to get to a certain point.
Yeah, all I know about Invisible Woman, at least, well, I don't actually know much. I know initially, she was just kind of the love interest character where Namor, Mr. Fantastic would be pining after. But then if I had to imagine, I'd assume she gained a personality over time, or maybe started with one. I don't know.
Yeah, there's really not much we know about.
Yeah, the actors that are kind of going around currently are any white woman. I haven't seen any
white woman under the sun.
Yeah,
Well, there was supposed
and
to
that
be
has
like
blonde hair.
John Krasinski's wife.
Yeah,
was
Emily
one of
Blunt is probably the biggest one. Who
I just think she might be a little bit on the older side.
Yeah, I think if you have John Krasinski, it'd be fun because they are husband and wife. But at the same time, she said before in interviews, Emily Blunt, that she doesn't want to do a superhero movie. So,
we're done there then.
unless the Marvel money comes on through, I don't think.
The other actors that we kind of have here are, I don't remember the actor's name, but she was in the horror movies Happy Birthday, the main character in that. It was like a Groundhog Day kind of thing. She could be pretty good. Yeah. Happy Death Day, not Happy Birthday.
Death Day.
And then also Lily James. Actually, Lily James would be really good, I think. She was very good in the two
Jessica
movies.
Roth is Happy Death Day, I believe. Haven't seen the movie, just checking IMDb. Yeah, Lily James, I think I know her.
I only know her is from, I think, one movie and another one, Baby Driver. I don't know. I've seen two things of her.
That's
one
what
I
it
remember
was.
is Baby Driver.
Oh, she was also Cinderella.
Oh.
What do you know?
That's actually quite a bit of range. Cinderella and Deborah from Baby Driver.
In Baby Driver, she's kind of just the stereotypical girlfriend. She doesn't have that much to do, but kind of damsel in distress.
It's unfortunate that I kind of know nothing about Invisible Woman because it's hard to gauge which actors will be good because you just kind of look at them and you go, are they a blonde white woman?
Yeah.
Like it's the only like basis. Whereas I guess if you don't want the Fantastic Four to be all white, she doesn't even have to be a blonde white woman. Although I think in my own head, I feel like if I were casting the Fantastic Four, I really don't care about the skin color for any of them, really. But if I had a preference, I think Sue Storm and Johnny Storm should probably be white because I don't know, I get the white vibe from them more than the other ones. But yeah.
I mean, they could always just be like, okay, you grew up in a white neighborhood or something, or a white area, like New York or something.
Yeah, and also I think as bad as the movie was,
And Four Stick.
Michael B. Jordan did a decent job, and I don't know. I don't think we've had a bad Johnny Storm before. I like Chris Evans and Michael B. Jordan. Although they didn't have much to do in their movies, I don't think so.
No, definitely not. They were just kind of there.
Mm-hmm. So I guess that's a nice way to move on to the castings for Johnny Storm,
Right, yeah.
who I probably, if I have to imagine, have the biggest opinion on, just because he's the Fantastic Four character I know the most, because he shows up in Spider-Man comics, because he's like Spider-Man's best friend.
Yeah.
So I'm probably the most opinionated on him, and that's not even being that opinionated.
That's just kind of just going off of facts that like it happens.
He be Spider-Man's best friends, who should probably be around Tom Holland age, is like my only...
I would imagine. I would like to imagine that.
Yeah, I think in that case, it would probably cast either like an upcoming actor, almost like Tom Holland, or somebody who's not that known.
That is my hope. I don't think a known actor would do I feel like having Johnny Storm kind of has the just give a new actor a chance kind of vibe, rather than cast Zac Efron, which is one of the ones I see a lot.
Yeah, I despise that casting. I hate it.
I don't think it fits that well.
But I think he said in an interview or something that he would love to. He's just waiting for an email or a call, but
that's also every actor. Any actor would be down to be in the MCU.
Yeah.
But that's I was joking with my brother before that my casting for Johnny Storm is up and coming early 20s actor.
Been coming at least 20.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense though. Like,
that's pretty much that. And moving on, there's
really not much to cover there either.
There is The Thing, who I feel if you had to get an A-list celebrity for the Fantastic Four, I feel like The Thing is a good place to do it, because I feel like having a recognizable character under CG is kind of nice, because you don't get like the point at the screen and go, hey, I know that actor, because they're just a ton of rocks. And it also probably has the biggest amount of variety.
Yeah, it's like, especially looking back at Vin Diesel with Groot, like having him play all the different like generations of Groot, and not even like having that motion capture, like take on.
He wasn't even on set.
Like, he wasn't even on set. No, he was just a voice actor.
He's in the recording studio, gets his paycheck, and leaves.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I think they would probably animate him similar to Thanos with the technology.
Yeah, potentially could be like Thanos and Hulk in that sense.
The Fan4Stick thing was pretty good.
Yeah, actually, I liked him too. Like, it was actually really good.
I don't want them to do makeup again, not because it was a good effect, and I like how it looks in the old movies, but I feel like with everything else in the MCU, pretty much anyone who has a different color skin, if you're not in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, are going to be CG. So having The Thing be a practical effect might make him stand out too much.
Yeah,
definitely. Especially when you have Hulk. If they ever get right beside each other, it's going to look very weird.
Some fan castings are pretty much any wrestler under the stars.
Yeah, oh wow, that's like. I mean, like, what would you expect, honestly?
But yeah, other ones that just on our dumb pictures is Shaquille O'Neal, which I don't really see, but would be very funny. There's Ben McKenzie, who played Commissioner Gordon in Gotham, who I guess could do a decent job. I bet he'd do a good job, although I feel like The Thing being like I think Ben Grimm should kind of be a big guy even before he's transformed, because then it kind of, if the whole point of the Fantastic Four is it kind of emphasizes their personality, then having The Thing be kind of like a scrawny guy, or I wouldn't say he's scrawny, but just not really big guy
Built.
feels a little weird.
It's definitely not built. Yeah.
There's also Seth Rogen is like the biggest one I've seen going around. And
Oof.
while I don't think I'd like that, especially like since the Chip and Dale movie came out, where there's that one scene where all the Seth Rogen voiced characters kind of pop up on screen at once.
Yeah.
I guess it kind of ruined that casting for me because I'm like, oh, just the Thing's going to be in that shot now too.
Yeah, and then you get his
Rather
laugh.
Yep.
It does kind of feel like the Thing is if Seth Rogen is the Thing, it feels more like a joke rather than an actual casting.
Hmm.
Yeah, and with the character arc that Ben Grimm as the Thing kind of takes, it's like almost he hates himself, right? Am I wrong
Yeah.
with that? He hates
He
how he
definitely hates
looks,
himself.
and
Yeah.
like that's a little bit of a parallel to the mutants. A little bit. It's less of other people hating him and him hating himself, but I wonder if they could have some parallels.
Yeah.
At
Actually,
least
I
the
think it kind
character
of
needs
parallels
to kind
Doctor
of push
Doom
that.
too.
Yeah,
Where at least in the comics, Doctor Doom, I think for a while he had like one scar on his face, and his ego was so broken by that he put on a metal mask. They probably changed that because it's a little goofy of an origin story, but I do feel like the difference between the Thing, who learns to love himself even though he obviously got the short end of the stick, versus Doctor Doom, who got one scar on his face and is like, I'm hiding myself from the world. It's a good
yeah,
parallel to have.
Hmm.
So I feel like it could work. I feel like having a not conventionally attractive actor is probably good. I could see him being attractive and then being rocks and being like, "Oh no," but that also kind of feels like too vain.
yeah.
Um,
And then maybe with the mention of Doctor Doom, we want to go over
we
to
could
that.
throw in some Doctor Dooms, although there are none on these pictures that we have here. So we're just gonna have to spitball based on memory or our own ideas,
Yeah,
which
I
is
think
fine.
I think that Doctor Doom should not be the first villain of the movie. I think we've all agreed
Definitely
on
not.
that.
We've
Um,
had two main Doctor Dooms already, and I'm sick and tired. He should be set up in that movie and then come back as a bigger threat later.
yeah. I saw one theory online that was probably pretty popular that you guys saw was in Moon Knight when they woke up in that town that was had a castle behind Oscar
Yep.
Isaac there. People were like,
Latveria.
"Oh yeah, that's the town." But then people were also like, "Well, why would Doctor Doom let some cult take over his town?" And it was like,
Exactly.
"Well, maybe this happens." Wait, sorry. Maybe this happens during the blip, which I don't think so because on the side of a bus um, they had the organization from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so I don't think it happened during the blip. But as well, they could be in space. Like Doctor Doom could be getting his powers right now, and then he comes back to that town and takes it over.
Oh,
Yep.
it's so annoying. This is such a good segue into what my idea for the Fantastic Four movie is, but we should talk about actors who people want to play Doctor Doom. uh,
Yeah,
just repeat exactly what you said to a perfect degree, like 5 minutes later, as if nothing happened, and I'll just go off of that. No. First off, I've seen for Doctor Doom. I I think earlier quite a few people were talking about Giancarlo Esposito. While that's a fun casting, I feel he's too old.
He is
But I don't
definitely
know.
too old. He
If
is
they
definitely.
cast him, he'd nail it probably.
yeah. I
Uh,
think I don't know if you've seen this one either, but Cillian Murphy.
I just need to remember. Oh, Cillian Murphy. Oh, I have seen that one. I don't think that
Yeah,
one's that bad. No, that's not
he
bad at all.
he 100% has range to do all of like the insane, like, okay, he looks menacing. He's I think he can still do the acting behind a metal mask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, still pretty old. I think I've seen quite a few people say Jason Isaacs as well, who, if you don't know, he played Snape in Harry Potter. He's played a bunch of
Yeah.
other characters, but not Snape. Lucius Malfoy in Harry Potter, and yeah, he's been in a bunch of other things that I've seen, but I don't remember his character names in any of those.
Yeah, he seems a little old.
He is a little old, but once again, would probably nail it. Honestly, casting villains is so much more fun because if you cast someone, you can pretty much cast any actor who'd ham it up, and it would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
But also, would Doctor Doom be a good ham it up character? I don't really know.
He has
Tell
to be
us in the
menacing to set
comments
him
because
up
we need
for
more comment engagement.
You'd have to set it up for multiple movies, probably 2 movies, and then the final movie is the final of the trilogy is the final.
Unless they're doing Secret Wars, which I think they're wanting to do.
They probably will.
And Doctor Doom is like the main villain in Secret Wars. So, yeah. Is there any other? No, I think that's good for Doctor Doom.
Yeah. Maybe we'll go
And,
into, Tyler, your theory on how they will be introduced.
Yeah, just wind your brain back to what Dakota said and act like this was a beautiful segue.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
I feel like the reason, like Latveria is empty. Why is that? Well, think of it this way. My main thing with the Fantastic Four movie is I saw it in another YouTube video, I think by Nandu V Movies, if anyone watches this and is like, I think he has good YouTube taste. He said that he thinks the Fantastic Four should be a movie that takes place in the 60s primarily. Like it's a 60s movie and it's like Fantastic Four, it's like Captain America, the first Avenger. Oops, we're now transported to modern day.
Yeah.
And I think that is the perfect way to do the Fantastic Four because then they can still be the first set of superheroes while not taking up, not like where were they the whole time?
Mm-hmm.
So my idea is that the Fantastic Four are like an adventuring group of scientists. They're like your basic adventure movie, no superpowers. They just go on like adventures in jungles and whatever 60s adventure explorers would do. And eventually they're like hired to go to outer space to study something because they're all like scientists or whatever. And while in outer space, they are attacked by some cosmic ray and transported to some unknown dimension that is governed over by the Beyonder. The Beyonder being, if you don't know who he is, he's just like a god character in the MCU who is kind of in control of both Secret Wars stories. So yeah, anyway, they're transported there, and he pretty much makes them figure out their powers and puts them up against like a bunch of things to fight, because that's kind of his whole deal. He's just a big fan of superheroes and wants his own set of superheroes. So I don't know, they fight like probably cameo characters the way the MCU is going. And Doctor Doom's with them and tries to like usurp his power. The Beyonder catches on as like no and kicks him out, probably spitting him back out in like some random time a little bit like into the MCU. So he's I don't know, maybe during the blip or something. Just Doctor Doom should be spat out back into the world a little bit before the Fantastic Four are. So he's been stewing in modern day before they are. Mm-hmm. And then they eventually escape. It's like a prison break. They make it out of the Beyonder's lair, and now they're stuck. And as they're sent out, they realize, oh shoot, time passes weird in this area. It's like Interstellar, and now we're in modern day. Oops, and that's where the movie ends.
Well, I mean, like, the whole reason why Fanforstic failed was because it barely really showcased the superheroes. So, I mean, like,
yeah,
if it goes down this route, they would have to be very careful panning out the time.
It's true. As much as I'd love to have it take place a lot in the 60s, I feel like you can't give them their powers and them also to be in the 60s, because then like the importance of why are there superheroes now from the early MCU would kind of be undermined.
Yeah, exactly. And
which is annoying because I'd love to have just like a 60s movie where they beat up Mole Man and then something happens.
Yeah.
Like, if the movie were to take place entirely up in space, then sure, the 60s would technically work. But then that would kind of ruin the whole point of having the
Them in the
first.
60s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a fine line.
very fine line indeed, yeah.
And I think maybe doing another origin story is still the right idea, and that's where they should go, only because it's never been told somewhat correctly. Um, and
I'm
you
just
also
not
need to
sure.
introduce these characters into the MCU correctly. And putting
It's
them in the
just
60s is cool, but in the more you think about it, the more they have to like retcon stuff, I think.
It's
or
true.
workaround
It's just
stuff.
so annoying. It's so
Mhm.
annoying that the Fantastic Four is known as Marvel's first family, but they're going to show up super late into the MCU.
Yeah. Of course, they could just say, "Oh, it's in another universe." Boom, done, easy.
Well, I mean, the problem with that is like,
Now we don't
well, there
care.
is, yeah, no one would really care at that point. Like, people would stop caring because they're from a different universe, so they're really expendable.
Yeah.
Maybe
Um,
what you want to do is like they're cast out from their universe and they they're cast out from their universe for whatever reason, and now they're on this world with like superpowers, and then after staying for a while, oops, we caused an incursion, and then that's where Secret Wars comes from.
mhm.
I would like to remind you though that staying in another universe doesn't necessarily cause an incursion. That's only what
Yeah.
Reed Richards thought. Um, Thinking back to like the ending of What If, where the Watcher brought like Ultron universe Black Widow into an alternate universe where Black Widow died.
Yeah.
Like I can imagine them doing something similar in this case, as in like the Fantastic Four would have been important to the sacred timeline, but for some reason they were gone or killed off. So
Yeah.
another universal like variant team would have to come in.
Yeah, maybe just in the butterfly effect that they
Hmm.
didn't exist earlier on, like in the 60s.
Yeah,
But these new characters from another universe we do introduce, they were introduced in the 60s, and we're maybe just taking them from a world where there's perfect no aging. Because then they'd be 80 years old in our time.
hmm Yeah, I do think introducing the Fantastic Four is quite a rough thing to do because the whole idea of them being the first family, but also being in the middle of the MCU and not wanting to retread Captain America: The First Avenger, and not wanting them to be old is such a annoying line to deal with. So let's just act like we figured it out and move on
but
to like villains or something. So
well, I want to know one thing though. It's that the MCU hasn't really explored the 1960s at all. I would say, like, I vaguely say that because I don't remember anything really like in the MCU that took place in
the
1960s.
the oldest they've gone is World War II, right?
Yeah, they've gone as far as, well, technically yes. I mean, if you exclude all the Asgard stuff, but
Oh, yeah, I guess
yeah,
that's true.
World War II has been like the farthest back they've gone, and then they just kind of skipped all the way to like the 80s, I think.
Mm-hmm.
80s and then 90s. There wasn't really
Yeah.
any like substantial amount of storytelling in the 60s and 70s era.
Yeah, because even though it is World War II, World War II might as well be its own period in time.
Yeah,
It's a completely different. Yeah, I don't know. It's a completely different
yeah, they only stretched as far as like,
time
mhm.
than the 60s. Then. Mm-hmm.
So on like on another standpoint, yes, there is a lot of room for them, but at the same time, it would have to mean the world not knowing that the Fantastic Four existed, or at least the Fantastic Four being a underground type of group, kind of like the
Yeah.
Illuminati. Well, I wouldn't say Illuminati.
Unless like you could do it like
Government
as
cover up as
much
well.
as much as government cover-ups have been kind of abused in the MCU with Shield and stuff. I could see it as like they fought some villain, then were frozen in time or stuck in the negative zone or something, and then
Shield
once
just covers it
it
up.
it was just so secret that even Shield knew not much about it,
Mhm.
and they only find out about it once it's like Sword. So now Sword kind of realizes, oh shoot, we have like 4 people or 5 people frozen in our basement, and unfreeze them or something.
Mm-hmm. Mentioning Thor, I kind of have my own like opening that they could do their origin. Like
Whoa.
maybe in Secret
Multiple
Invasion,
opinions?
they introduce Reed Richards as an agent of Sword on the same ship that Nick Fury was on here. That they showed at the end of something, maybe Far From Home. I think
Yeah,
they
Far
showed at
From
the end.
Home. Yeah, the scrolls.
Yeah. So in this Fantastic Four movie, or in Secret Invasion, they show off. Okay, uh, maybe Reed Richards and maybe Sue Storm are students on this secret spaceship.
They could also just
Yeah.
be researchers. They don't have to be students.
That's
Oh,
true.
that's true.
Depending
I
on
feel like
how
students.
old they want.
Yeah, I guess.
And then I guess Ben and Johnny would also have to be there somehow, but I don't want them to get them all into one show because then that's a little bit too obvious. And then maybe
Yeah, you
something
could
goes wrong.
and say you can say something happened, like they were infected with space virus, so they've been kept on this ship to be quarantined
Yeah.
or something, and that's where the movie could start. It's like they've been
Like we don't
quarantined on the ship, and now
we don't know how far a Secret Invasion the show is going to go. It seems to be that it might be Nick Fury's last run as the character, because
yeah, which makes sense.
unfortunately.
But
So I think just doing a subtle cameo like that would be good, just to solidify something, and
Yeah.
then continue it.
yeah, I think like if you I don't know, Reed Richards has like a cameo or something, and then maybe if you really want to, you can say if something happens on the ship in Secret Invasion, you could say they've been cosmic raid, or they've been cosmic raid already, I don't know. But then the Fantastic Four movie starts them on this ship being kind of studied because they've been, I don't know, in contact with space rays, and then it goes from there.
I think that's smart to kind of split up their origin, because we've already seen it in one movie, and the origin part is not the coolest part of these characters. It's how they react to their origin is what's the
Mhm.
coolest part. So if they can somehow put the origin in split up in a bunch of movies, not the entire origin, but the baseline of it into maybe some of the shows or some other properties, and then just continue on, we can explore their powers finally in a movie. And that would be
It's
great.
so upsetting that Fanforstic isn't good, because the idea of like some evil government holding the Fantastic Four hostage to research them is such a
Yeah.
cool idea, and they have to like escape. But then, obviously, I don't think that should be the origin, but it's just a very cool idea for something for them to do.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So I think we have our origin set. As much as I'd love for it to be in the 60s, this does make more sense. So who do we think the villain should be?
60s villain.
I don't know any other villain than Doctor Doom for them, so
So
Silver
yeah,
Surfer. Well, technically, he's
Silver Surfer
he
could be a villain.
kind of changes
Um,
sides eventually.
Mole Man was the Fantastic Four's first villain, although I think he's too grounded and goofy to be like a proper villain.
Mm.
Although I have seen fan castings for him, and it's very funny because it's pretty much two. I've seen Danny DeVito, which makes sense and is like, haha, it's funny. Danny DeVito is like a short guy, and the Mole Man is a short guy. And I've also seen Elijah Wood, which I also think is very funny. And he's also a silly little guy that would be hilarious in a silly little guy role. Other villains include Galactus, who I feel is too big of a threat to be a first movie deal.
definitely.
There's Annihilus, who is the like master of the negative zone, or he lives in the negative zone and conquers worlds.
That could be interesting.
There is
Super Scroll.
Yeah, I
Super
just googled
Skrull.
it.
Maybe.
Super Scroll could work so well to our origin story.
Yes.
Could work. It would suck for the Super Skrull to be the third or technically fourth time the Skrulls show up in an MCU project.
Well, who knows? Maybe that's the
Yeah.
reason. Maybe that's the intent. Maybe we see Super Scroll in the Marvels as a bit of a precursor.
Yeah,
Or
he
even in
could be like
Secret
a
Invasion if you
scientist
want.
or something,
Yeah.
and that's where we introduce Super Skrull. And then in Secret Invasion is where we introduce the Fantastic Four on the ship, and something bad happens on the ship, and somehow Super Skrull gets a hold of these four characters, and he does experiments on them to test what it is.
Or
And we can
something.
still
And
introduce
now
the testing
he's
part from the Fan Four Stick.
It's true. My worry about Super Skrull is that the Skrulls are kind of going to be bled dry by that time. Because if you have them show up in the Marvels, and then
Yeah.
also have them show up in Secret Invasion, and like if you have Skrull show up in Marvel's Secret Invasion, and then as a main villain in the Fantastic Four movie, it feels like that's a lot of Skrulls in a very short period of time.
I mean,
Yeah.
like
It's
the
fine.
releases won't be that bad. I don't think.
Mm-hmm. I guess.
And like having like especially this is especially considering how they treated the Kree previously. Like the Kree had like a huge abundance of appearances randomly in the middle of the MCU, and then suddenly they just kind of had a big pause, and then went back to it, and suddenly now they're just like gone.
Yeah, similar to the Nova Corps.
So I feel like the Nova Corps, and like I feel like the same situation can be done here, so that they aren't like overinflating a certain arc of the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and at the current rate, it'll be like 1 to 2 years between projects anyway.
Yeah.
Like, what we're gonna get Marvel's next, like, February, and then Secret Invasion, I believe, is either that summer or that fall. And then Fantastic Four just lost its director so guaranteed it's out like 2 to 3 years out from now.
It's gonna get delayed for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Some other villains, just throw them out, is there is I brought up the Beyonder, who isn't really a Fantastic Four villain, but I think having him introduced before Secret Wars is probably a good thing. There's also, well, obviously Doctor Doom, and oh, dang it, I just saw one. Namor, but he will be in Wakanda forever. So we'll see
Right,
how that goes. And
Kang already exists.
yeah, Kang does exist and I guess could be the villain. And finally, I don't remember his name. There's a guy who is just a bunch of superpowered apes.
What the heck?
What's
Superpowered
his
apes?
name?
Powered apes. Oh, Red Ghost.
Yeah, Red Ghost and his
Ghost.
super ape.
That'd be
Apes
really
or
weird.
something. Yeah, he just has like 4 apes that have different superpowers, and he's just like an evil
Kidding.
scientist. Who would be once again like a funny 60s villain, but also a wild choice for the Fantastic Four movie. And if you want to do something really like if you want to do something more psychological, there's also Puppet Master, who pretty much does exactly what you'd imagine. He's just like a mind manipulator. But I really have no idea which villain I'd want because the Fantastic Four villains are insane. And
what
they're
if,
either way too big or way too small.
what if they just do, like, maybe we'll just take out the giant CGI third act, and instead, like, just explore each of the characters on the reaction to either the mono world or how public they want to be. Like, okay, if the problem with that is the MCU has become so normalized, I think, where like the
Yeah.
people of the MCU are like, oh, there's a new green monster of the week, cool. So they
And
won't get that much backlash.
As much as I wouldn't want Doctor Doom to be the main villain, if you had they're exploring their powers, you could kind of have it where, for the most part, they come to accept themselves, other than Doctor Doom, and something happens where it's a falling out, and well, you don't need the big CGI third act. I feel like if you have Doctor Doom either manipulate them into kind of fighting amongst themselves, or just have something that's sets him up as a villain while also not making the Fantastic Four beat him.
Yeah.
Like where he wins, but not enough to where it's just like he just straight up defeated them. That'd be a good-ish way to introduce him as like a this guy means business kind of character, but you also don't want him to just like murder them because obvious reasons.
Yeah. Even if you give, the thing is, if it's a 2-hour movie, you're going to have to give each character 20-ish minutes on screen. If
Something
that's just the
substantial.
4 of them.
Something
So,
substantial for the audience to cling on to.
exactly. It's hard to balance that, and not
You
many
want-
directors can do that.
If you want just like a really minor villain, so they can explore themselves, and then if you want like at least a small fight, you can kind of have it where maybe they beat up Mole Man or something, and then that's not like the third act, but something
Yeah, it could be in
else.
a montage or if they all want to individually explore their characters, that could just be a common
Like
thing going on.
a way that they get together or something.
Exactly.
And maybe if you want, you can kind of have a Doctor Doom wins-esque ending.
Yeah.
Actually, what if you do Red Ghost? He has like 4 different monkeys, right? So what if each Fantastic Four person, they like split up or whatever, and they each have to fight their own monkey, and then they end up, once they get together, they beat up Red Ghost, and that's how the movie ends. If you want like a more small scale one.
Thank you for joining us in the Brainstorming Lab as we created the perfect situation for the Fantastic Four to join the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We'd love it if you could follow us on Twitter and listen to future episodes on Spotify and iTunes. Join our community Discord server to continue today's discussion. And we'll see you next time on the Switch Clicks podcast.